Hey everyone, welcome to today's video of my coding school, where we're going to get started with an Expo project to get it up and running and go a little bit into why I picked Expo over a plain React Native application. So let's get started. So we're going to go through this video series and we're going to do a lot around Expo, React Native, Firebase, and how we integrate certain features, whether it's a login method, whether it's a database, real-time database, Firestore. But we have to get started with this application up and running. So it's really easy to get started. The documentation for both Expo and React Native is very comprehensive. For both of them, there's a little setup that has to be required. If you've done any dev work in the past, you should have a lot of these things already installed, like Yarn, NPX, Node, Git, and then any type of editor that you want to use. So first we're going to start with React Native and why I picked Expo. So if you go to reactnative.dev and the docs, you can even see to set up the development environment, there's actually two options. There's Expo Go Quick Start and React Native CLI Quick Start. When Expo first got started, the team was part of the React Native team. It was kind of like a side project. There's a lot of missing components, but over the years, as React Native has grown and matured into this framework that's used by a lot of Fortune 500 companies for their apps, Expo has also grown as well. When they first got started, they kind of just had this huge package, a huge library that had a bunch of different packages, whether it's the camera component, the pay component, the Bluetooth component, but they've kind of, and what happened is it became very bloated. So over the years, they've kind of extrapolated each one of those components out into the React components library, and each one of these specific ones you can add to either a React Native application or an Expo application. And while at first the Expo application didn't have all the features to do a full-blown app, now it basically has everything. There's very few instances where if you get started with Expo, you'll have to eject from Expo to the React Native platform. And that's the cool thing about it. Like, if you come to a point where you're doing a lot of native code, you can eject from Expo and go back to the React Native application already. So they've made that transition super easy. You can't go the other way around from React Native to Expo, but you can go from Expo to React Native very easily. So let's get started with our Expo application. Oh, and let's touch on why I picked Expo. So as a single developer, if you're doing side projects or something, it's super easy to get up and running. There's 2 commands to get up and running. As long as you have everything installed, it just starts running. And the other thing is, when you do have it running, it's super easy to test. So one of the big features that I really like in Expo is you can see this QR code right here. If you download the Expo Go app on your phone, you could connect directly to your local environment, your phone, and test out different features. And while the emulator on the computer itself gives you a lot of features to be able to test out certain things, let's say you want to test out Bluetooth or location services, you can do that on a emulator in the device or emulator on the computer, but it's a lot more accurate and you got a lot more feedback with the Expo Go application. So that's one of my favorite features of Expo, and I'm sure more will come up I'll talk about them. But to just get up and running real quick, we're going to first create our application. We'll go back to the documentation. So if we're going to go through the installation, go to docs.expo.dev, and like I said, you have to make sure you have all these installed already. If you're running on a Mac, most of these will be installed already, or if you've done any type of code editing in the past, they'll be installed already. You don't need Yarn. The command right now is npm run iOS. You can use Yarn, set that up. And you also don't need VS Code editor. I am using it, but I have used Sublime a lot in the past and just switched to VS Code editor, so either one works. So if we scroll down, and you also, another cool feature of Expo is that when you create an account with Expo, you can do live updates. So through Expo, instead of doing a whole rebuild when your app is in production. Let's say you did a typo on one of the pages and you just need to do like some small change and fix the typo. Instead of rebuilding the entire application, submitting it to iTunes Connect, waiting for Apple to get a response back, typically takes a day to 48 hours to get that response back, and then publishing a whole new version, you can do JavaScript updates with Expo, and you could kind of push it live on the wire to all of your users. And so next time the app reloads, that spelling change or whatever plain JavaScript updates will change on the device. So you could actually get pretty complex with it. If there's any completely new features that are built out in plain JS, you're supposed to do a new rebuild. Technically, you could still push it up, but definitely recommend doing a new rebuild for any new features. But it's really great to catch like any small things that need to be updated really quick. And you don't have to go through that whole process of rebuilding and getting improved again. So you can create a login. You don't need to right now, but we're going to go to the create new app, and this is the only command: npx create expo app, and then the name of your app. So right here they have it, my-app, and instead of that, we're going to call it MCSF for My Coding School app. So this will be like a starter app. I already installed it. It does take a little bit of time, so I didn't want to record that. But once you do get it up and running, you're just going to cd into the application, change directory, and then you're going to do npm run. And you can do npm run, and then whatever type of application you want to run. So if you want to do Android, you could do npm run Android, iOS, and then web. So we're going to do npm run iOS. And let's exit out of this so it's a little bit more clear. And so this will get the emulator that's already installed on all Macs and start running this new application on the emulator on the phone. And like I said, it also has this QR code, so if you were to download the Expo app, scan this, you could also connect to this, your local environment, and see any changes that you made. So like if we were to come here and remove this and say hello world, we could see a change right here. And if we had the Expo app as well, we could see it on the app as well. So it's really cool. You don't have to do a rebuild at all. I think the thing that takes the most time in iOS development is this, just waiting for things to rebuild. And so it makes it super quick to iterate on different versions. And then you can see if you press any of these in the console, you can open the debugger, you can reload the app manually. If something doesn't take effect, you can toggle the menu. And so it's super quick, super easy to get up and running with that one command. And you can see there's really only one main file right here. We have the app.js, which is what we just changed to show hello world. We have some basic styling right here, which will later extrapolate into its own file, and then the packages that we installed. So right now we only have Expo, Expo status bar, React, and React Native. So like I said in the beginning, Expo used to be bloated. Now they've kind of they removed all the non-core dependencies from the application, so it's a much lighter weight. But then once we want to add new modules, we'll have to add that in the future. So hopefully that was a good start to why I picked Expo versus React Native. They're very complementary to each other, especially if you get started with Expo, you could always get back to React Native in the middle of a project if you need to do more native development. So for the next video, we're going to continue on this series and start adding to this application as we move forward. And I'll see you next time. Peace.